Hello and welcome to Talk It Out, where we talk it out. My name is Duryea Rashad, and I'm so happy to be here with you today. It is Thursday, my favorite time of the week, and one of my favorite months of the year, because it's Thanksgiving coming up, and I always got to represent for Thanksgiving, since everybody always seems to just want to act like it doesn't exist after Halloween. So shout out to all my turkeys out there who filling people's bellies this month. Hey. Now, if you haven't been to Talk It Out before, this is a platform where people of opposing views can get together and have a healthy, productive dialogue in a respectful way. Keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Now, before we introduce our panelists, I want to remind you to head over to YouTube and search Woe Nelly Media. That's WOENELLY Media. And subscribe to our page. You can also find us on Twitch at Daygamer. That's DAYGAYMER. And you can also find us on Facebook by searching Woe Nelly Media or at WNM Talk It Out. All right. Also, make sure if you're watching right now, share with your friends. Post this on Facebook. Share with your friends on YouTube. All that grow our family. It's a great experience. And if you would like to become a panelist, please email admin@woenellymedia.com. So, without further ado, let's get to some introductions. All right. First, let's start with our returning panelist. This guy was on our Bro Code episode, which is one of my favorite episodes. His name is Jason Picard. He used to act, but now he's just himself, raising a 1.5-year-old and watching Netflix with his wife, Sarah. When it comes to religion, he brings the knowledge and she brings the enthusiasm. You can follow him everywhere at Jason Picard, including 3 TikToks. His EP is called Free Words, and you can listen to it for free at freewordsfree.com/free. Let's welcome Jason to the show. How you doing?
Hey, wow, I get to be the first one in. This is so exciting, man.
Yeah, I know. Look, you can thank our backstage, the person behind the curtain. She made that choice.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm doing well. Thank you for plugging the TikTok. I got 3 up there. Maybe someday I'll get more. Maybe if I get some more followers. Who knows? Hopefully, TikTok is, you just got to do it every day, like twice a day. Yeah, that doesn't seem like something I'm gonna do.
It's actually difficult. Like creating those videos takes like an hour and a half.
It's a lot. I still can't figure out how to get like text timed correctly in the right spot. I skip all that. I know that's like a really important part of TikTok. I just haven't.
It is.
I haven't.
Right. Shout out to TikTokers if y'all are out there. All right. So next we're gonna bring in Justin. Justin is a returning panelist who studies religion, the occult, and secret societies, politics, world history, and the roles these cultural aspects play in influencing each other. Justin has been a musician for 20 years and is the guitarist from the controversial shock folk band Singing for Satan. Here is Justin, everybody. What's up, Justin?
Hail Satan. How's it
going?
My
God, I cannot believe you just did that on the show. Listen, he comes through with the hoodie and everything like that. Are you really part of a band called Hail Satan? Or are you just talking shit?
Singing for Satan, absolutely.
That is a mess. Okay, well, good for you.
Absolutely.
How are you doing? How are you doing?
Come again?
How are you this week? What's up? What's new? Can you not hear me?
I'm doing great. Okay. I'm doing fantastic.
Awesome.
Oh, I can hear you a little bit. I think I got a little bit of a lag on my end here.
That's what it seems like. It seems like there's a lag.
I'd say, just easy going, following the world events here, but
right, which we're going to talk about during current events. Of course, we're going to talk about during current events. Okay, so our next panelist's name is Norman Hardiman. He's a native of West Georgia. He stems from a family of ministers, and he's continuing the legacy of ministry started by his parents as a full-time outreach minister and entrepreneur to better serve the needs of his community. Norman's also the author of The Christian Man and Pornography, which speaks to the power that God gives every man to overcome addiction. Norman has a bachelor's in music education and an MBA. He and his wife, Anna, have 2 children, Victoria and Matthew. Welcome to the show, or welcome back to the show, Norman. How you doing, buddy?
Man, I'm great. Duryea, thanks for having me on, man. Glad to be back.
Absolutely. I love having you on here. You always have like such great insight into the topics we discuss. I didn't know you wrote a book.
Yeah,
How
I
can
did,
people
man.
find the book?
Actually, last year, just go to type in The Christian Man in Pornography. It'll be the first book that comes up. I have my own
Okay.
website. It's thechristianmaninpornography.com. So I talk about my 15-year journey through pornography as a single man, and also as a married man, and how much that means to me, that journey, and how I overcame.
That's really dope. And I assume it's very necessary because I assume that a lot of Christian people don't really want to talk about stuff like that. Okay. All right.
Man,
So now let's
for sure.
Absolutely. So now let's introduce our new panelists. First up, we have Michelle Pokapak. She's an actor in theater and film based out of Atlanta. We also share an alma mater. In 2017, she and her partners co-founded East by Southeast, an organization focused on supporting and developing Asian artists in Atlanta in all different types of mediums. In 2020, she joined IDEA ATL, or maybe it's IDEA ATL. She'll let me know. Inclusion, Diversity, and Equality in the Arts Atlanta as a committee member, where she has engaged in several events tackling racial injustices and other inequities within her theater community in Atlanta. Please welcome Michelle Pokapak.
Hi everyone.
Hello. How are you?
I'm doing okay. I'm just staying busy in this new normal, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. So tell us a little bit, other than what we just heard, about the projects that you're involved in.
Some I can't really speak about.
Okay.
Some I've been delving more into like producing. So like with East by Southeast, and just doing more like personal projects. Like there's a film that I want to try and produce. So like working behind the camera as opposed to in front.
So,
and I've been working a lot more with a lot of the organizations that have just developed in our community, about like a lot of the community and like civil rights work and, you know, racial equity work, hosting and like coordinating like a big town hall that we just had, for example, and just giving voice to people and marginalized people, specifically artists as well, that, you know, have kind of been silenced. So working a lot with that.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear that, especially as an artist to artist.
Totally.
All right. Now we're going to introduce Mr. Robert Grant. Robert Grant is a model, an aspiring photographer, and personality from Atlanta, Georgia. He's currently living in Brooklyn, New York. He is the founder of Aspect Progress, an online progressive media outlet providing commentary and analysis on progressive issues. He was also a former flight attendant for a major U.S. airline and has traveled to over 31 countries. Goodness gracious. Welcome, Robert Grant, to the show.
How are you? Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm glad you're here. It's going to be interesting. What are you working on right now?
I mentioned my project, Aspect Progress. I believe that progressive values are the future. They're the only policies that put people over profits, and we need a lot more thinking like that in America. So I've been on pause with my project for a little bit, but I plan on, picking up after the inauguration and everything, because we've got to fight to push the Democrats further to the left, I feel. Other than that, I've been working on some other creative projects, personally getting back into modeling, photography, stuff like that. Personally, not really a religious person, so this is going to be a very interesting discussion, and I look forward to it.
Awesome. I just saw some responses on some faces. I cannot wait until current events. I can't wait. All right. Next, we're introducing Miss Casey Wynn, another from my alma mater. She is an Atlanta filmmaker and co-founder of Wild Wind Pictures. She has a bachelor's degree in film from Georgia State University. This is Miss Casey Wynn. Hey, Casey.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going great. I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. She is one of the she has one of the best personalities. She's so chill. She's so super chill, and she's not judgmental at all. I love Casey.
Oh, thank you.
Tell us about any project that you're working on.
So right now, we just actually wrapped up a 5-day shoot on a feature. It's called Rift. It's coming out in 2021 and it's really, really good. My husband is the director. I was a first AC, so I pulled focus for it. And we're just really excited about that one right now. We're working on marketing that. And then we've got a few more projects in the works. I think we're going to New Orleans at the end of this month to maybe shoot a Christmas movie or something like that. So yeah, just staying busy, hustling.
That's dope. I don't know how you managed, even still with what I do know about it, 5 days is incredible to film a full feature. So congratulations to you and your company. Absolutely. All right. So now we're going to bring in another. Now this person is not from my college alma mater. Is it alma mater still when it's high school?
No.
I guess. Me and her have been. We've known each other.
We can go.
Right. This is someone I've known since like 9th grade English when we used to cut the fuck up in class. Our teacher hated us. Her name is Amina Irons. She's a stay-at-home mom of 2, former professional African dancer, and upcoming makeup artist and activist. Please welcome Amina Irons to the show. Hey, Amina. Are you muted? Oh, no. I can't hear you. Okay. We're having some technical difficulties on that end. Can you try one more time, Amina? Can you say something? Okay, let me see. All right, let's try to get her. Yeah, so we'll try to get her squared away and we'll give her an introduction when we come back. But first, we're going to go ahead before we start. My check-in, as always, I'm glad to be here. It's Thursday. Got a lot of projects in the works. I was recently asked to be the host of an online newscast for the State Theater of Georgia, the Springer Theater Opera House. It's called The Spot. So we're doing a lot of behind the scenes to storytelling, to theater, to arts in general. I'm actually working on an episode about Ma Rainey that's going to come out in 2 weeks. I'm really excited, talking to some historians about her. And it's interesting that this is someone who isn't way more famous than they should be because of a lot of reasons. So look out for that. And if you want to find the first 2 episodes of The Spot, just head over to the springeroperahouse.org, or you can find Springer Opera House on Facebook. Okay, let's try to see if we can get Amina in here. Amina?
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay, great.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. Just trying to, like she said, navigate this crazy coronavirus world and just being a mom of 2, full-time mom.
I know. Good for you, though. I want a baby. Can I have one?
Yes.
You don't need 2. She said yes.
I can have one.
All right. So we're going to head into our current events. But before we do that, as always, let's pause for a quick ad break.
Hey, everybody. My name's Chris.
I'm Duryea.
I'm Ricky Z.
Justin.
And Julian.
Have you heard about Anchor.fm? It's the easiest way to make a podcast. First off, it's free.
Oh, I love free, especially when we're talking creation tools that allow you to record and edit right from your phone and computer.
And Anchor will actually distribute your podcast for you. So as soon as you're finished recording, you can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many other platforms.
And you can make money off of your podcast with no minimum listenership.
It's basically a one-stop shop for everything you need. So head on over to anchor.fm and download the mobile app now. And make sure you come back and geek out with us. All right. So it's time for current events. But before we talk about that, those commercials were from Geeking Out, which is our sister podcast, which we just had an episode where we talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer for an hour and a half. And our next episode is going to be on TV shows that were canceled too soon. And so please check out that, which is every other Monday at 8 p.m. Same place, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook. And also, that is my uncle is a producer, and he's selling beats. He sells beats, and he does original compositions. So if you want to find out more about that, if you want to find out more about that, email admin@WoeNellyMedia.com. All right, now it's time for current events. Now, I thought long and hard about current events because I know we're going to have to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it, but we have to talk about it. So I figure we'll start with that. So there was an election last week. There was an election. There was somebody was voting for some. I don't know. I heard it on the news somewhere. A little small election.
What?
Mm-hmm. And so basically what's happening if you're living under a rock somewhere, there was an election. The day one of the election, it looked like one person was winning. After they started bringing in mail-in ballots, the election flipped. And a lot of states that were usually red are now blue and all this controversy. So as a result, even though now, as it stands, one of the candidates has 290 electorate votes and the other one only has like 214. So they're projecting that the candidate with 290 electorate votes is going to be the projected winner. However, the person losing the person who does not have 270 votes is saying that the election's rigged, voter fraud, all this stuff. He's launched multiple lawsuits already. A lot of them have been kicked back already. And he's going to exhaust all of his legal options before he is willing to concede. And I read somewhere that if he doesn't make progress in like a week or so, he's going to go ahead and concede. I don't know how true that is. So we're going to talk about whether it is possible for him to actually win the election, even if he goes through like whatever he wants to do, because at this point, there's no evidence of voter fraud. And they're saying that's the only way he could win at this point is if he found evidence of widespread voter fraud. And when I say they are saying, I'm specifically talking about the news outlets because the Electorate College has not voted yet. And of course, the Electorate College can always not vote for the vote as cast by their constituents, but that's very rare. They said the last election, there were 7 that didn't do that though, which I did not know. So I want to talk about that. Like, do you think it's possible for him to still win? How do you feel about his behavior? And how do you feel about, if you want to talk about it, the outcome of the election thus far? Anyone have any pressing need to go first? Okay, go ahead.
I mean, first of all, no, it's not possible for him to democratically win. It just isn't possible. And even if every one of his lawsuits went through and they struck all of the couple thousand votes that he's calling into question, that still would be enough to flip the states. The fact is that all they're trying to do is delay, and try and make it as hard as possible for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris to have a smooth transition so that on January 21st, when they take office, everyone who is on that asshole side can be like, oh, they don't know what they're doing. What a sloppy first day, first week, whatever. It's just a whole bunch of bullshit. And, it's not even a controversy. Before the election, everyone was saying, every news outlet, even Fox News was saying, well, it's going to probably be a lot of Republican votes first, and then it's going to flip through when the mail-in ballots come in. And that's exactly what happened.
Exactly, yeah.
It's just ridiculous. By this time 4 years ago, Hillary had already conceded. By this time 4 years ago, Hillary had already said, we have to accept this election because that's what we do in a democracy.
Absolutely.
And that guy is not acting like he's in a democracy.
But are we surprised that that's how he's acting?
No. But he's impeached.
Hold on, y'all. Hold on. I'm about to flip out. Hey, y'all keep going.
No, please, someone else can take it. But like, he's an impeached president. He's co-conspirator, unindicted co-conspirator number one, and he's just trying to delay. And we got Mike Pompeo saying he's ready for a second Trump term.
Right. That's what got me. That's what got me. I think the thing that gets me about this whole thing isn't how Trump is behaving. It's how the other Republican leaders are behaving. Because I really want, like, because this is my thing. Like, when people are like, oh, I stand for the Constitution and I stand for democracy. But when somebody does some stuff that's not democratic, whether they're your party or not, you should be able to call them out. That's what we're hoping for. That's what we're banking on as citizens, is that like this whole Supreme Court thing, whether she's Catholic or not, the idea is that that shouldn't affect her choosing or adjudicating over something that's constitutional or not, because it's black and white whether it's constitutional or not. So it makes me nervous to think of how are we going to really move forward as a country without leadership that unifies us. And seeing now that basically it seems like, because Trump fired 2 more people today, or he didn't, let's say he didn't fire them. 2 more people resigned. Y'all can't see my quotes. They resigned from Homeland Security. And it seems like that's what's happening now. The people who aren't standing behind him are just getting fired or replaced, or he's trying to do that. Okay, I'm gonna go it to you because I'm just curious as to what you're gonna say. You know, I already know where I'm going.
Who's you?
You know, that's why you said something, because you know I was about to go to you.
No, I was just going to say, you know, the whole Republican thing is not surprising to me at all. You know, they showed who they were loyal to a long time ago, because all those people, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, when Donald Trump was the candidate, all those people disparaged him. And then when he was in office, they allowed him to do all of his dirty work because they just want to ensure their future, their political future. That's what it's all about at the end of the day. But I want to go back to your original question. The third question you asked was the election overall. And I want to do this and first put out my disclaimer that I don't want to sound like bitter or anything, but I don't think this election should have been this should have been this close in the first place. And, you know, the Democrats really dropped the ball with, you know, reaching out. You know, you talk about reaching across the aisle. They always want to reach the other way, but y'all don't want to reach this way, you know, to the left, where there's really, you know, a substantial swath of people that believe in progressive values. If you poll, you know, the American public, you know, something like over 60% of the population believe in, like, you know, universal health care, you know, free college tuition and things like those are very, very popular ideas. And they really just dropped the ball and gave us a watered down, you know, fucking middle of the road candidate again. And it just shows. And the whole reason why we're in this situation, you know, neck and neck with the fucking scum of the earth again is because, you know, they're really not speaking for us. So.
Does anybody agree with that?
I agree with some of that.
Okay, wait, hold on. I'm gonna go to Michelle first, and then I'm gonna go to you, Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
I do agree with what was said. I also was very mindful of this whole relationship between power and money in politics, and how much there's just this constant drive to maintain the status quo. And so with that, it's just so disgusting to me how much they will fight, because it's the only people that are able to make this change is people with money and power. And so with that, I feel like, have every other means and loopholes that they can take necessary to maintain it. And so I say that there is a 1% chance that it could change, even though, of course, I'm personally not in favor of it. But it's not over till it's over. And I guess that's the pessimist or realistic person in me. But I'm also just trying to prepare for the worst too.
Yeah, I feel the same.
But yeah, I had a thought and then it just went away. So.
Okay, Justin.
Probably going to be in the minority opinion here, but yeah, I agree that the election shouldn't have been close, because I feel like Donald Trump should have won it in a landslide. I'm not necessarily saying that it would be right for him to. I'm saying just look at the support that he had. I mean, for months, everybody going out, lining up their Trump flag covered trucks for like miles and miles, and then like going out and they got like 100 freaking boats going out. Like he had a lot of like support, and, you know, just like with
But go ahead.
100 votes isn't enough to win an election. Yeah, that he had a whole bunch of supporters who were willing to be unsafe, but like, you know, 70 million people is so much people, but it's not 75 million people.
Sure, and that's the other thing that you know, it's interesting. It's like, did we have so many votes this election because that many more people voted this time around, or did we have that many votes in this election because there's some shady shit going on? I think
let me hop in real quick. So this is my thing about what you're saying. There's like common sense to this whole thing, right? Now, because of the quarantine, people's eyes are really focused on the same stuff now. You know, before the quarantine, with life being what it is, half of the time, like George Floyd would have been noticed, but it wouldn't have been. I don't think it would have had the impact it had were it not for everyone having nothing to do and that being such a big deal. So watching not only that, watching how other countries responded to the coronavirus versus how he responded to the coronavirus, watching a lot of things that have played out. There are absolutely people who probably were sitting at home like, bruh, I have to vote, and I didn't vote before. There were a lot of people who wanted to vote for a Democrat but wouldn't vote for Hillary. I'm going to be honest. There's a lot of people out there who just didn't vote because they didn't want to vote for Hillary. Those people voted for Biden this time because it's like, oh, we saw what kind of wreckage this man has done in 4 years. If he has another 4, so I don't think it's surprising that this was the highest number of votes. Especially seeing as how many people did actually vote early and mail-in votes. I think, however, when it comes to when it comes to a lot of things about like people being politically vocal, the swing voters aren't politically vocal. They're in my opinion, and I could be wrong, I don't have any statistics to back this up. Swing voters are the ones who are moderate, and moderates aren't going to come out in strong support of either. They're going to kind of like listen to both sides and decide who they're going to vote for based off of that. That's my personal opinion. Go ahead, Robert.
I just wanted to add, in this climate, I find it very difficult to find like who is moderate, you know, because everything is so extreme. You know, American politics is very polar opposite right now. And I really find that, you know, I just find trouble wrapping my head around how people can say, oh, I'm moderate.
I wish I could introduce you. There's another guy who's on the show a lot. He's very fiscally conservative, but socially liberal. Like, yes, I get what you're saying, but in his mind, he doesn't like big government. He doesn't like the taxes. He doesn't like all that conservative stuff, which is conservative values, in my opinion, are profit over people. Progressive values are generally people over profit. There are some people who value profit over people, but they still don't want to like hurt people the way that some people want to hurt people, if that makes any sense. So it's like, I think gay people should get married. I think abortions should be legal. I think those kind of things. However, I don't want you to tax me. And I'm more concerned with that than the other stuff, which is how the moderates that I've spoken to, that's kind of how they think. I kind of want to go, however, to Casey and Norman and Amina and hear their ideas about what we're talking about before we move to our next topic. Anybody can go.
Okay, well, I'll go. I was actually one of the people who was not going to vote, and I just got out and did it. I honestly think that what's going on now is a political stunt that he's trying to pull. I am a little concerned, to be honest, just because in history, there's never really been, most presidents have always served 2 terms. And I'm wondering if, you know, just how politics goes, if they're going to take that into consideration for history, especially since we're waiting on the electoral colleges to make a decision. And I kind of feel like I posted a couple of days ago or a while ago, like, I'm hoping we're not going to be Al Gore, meaning Biden, has been declared the winner. And then all of a sudden something happens to where, oh no, now we have a new winner. The real winner is such and such. I'm not ready for that. So I'm definitely like everybody else trying to prepare myself, hoping that that won't happen. But you have to always be prepared for the unexpected. So I'm just patiently waiting. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, and I'm just gonna wait. My life doesn't change whether he wins or not. That's my mindset of it, and I'm just gonna focus on that and just try to live my life the best way I can. That's how it is.
I'm proud to say that I voted for Biden, and I was one of the ones to help Georgia flip blue. When we went blue, I said, if it stays blue, I'll go and get a peach tattoo on my ass, and I'm still planning on doing that. I'm so proud of Georgia.
I'm gonna hold you to that at this point.
I'm so proud of Georgia right now. So I think it was way too close. I can't imagine. It's hard for me to get into the mindset of how anybody could support Trump solely based on who he is as a person and the way he speaks and the fact that he's basically a big man child. To me, it's just, why would you want someone like that running your country? Like, okay, Biden might be a little bit old, but like, at least he's presidential, at the very, very least he can speak in full sentences. So that has a big, factor in how I felt about it. And I just hope that it sticks right now.
Norman?
Yeah, much of the same for me. This time I kind of voted for a balance of powers. I feel like Trump has really tipped the scale. But one of the positives that I feel came out of Trump's presidency is that he kind of drew out people who were in hiding, right? People who had racist views, people who maybe you had some question marks about, but there are no more question marks. I'm not saying that everybody who's a Trump supporter is a racist, right? I know a lot of people kind of are diehard Republicans, and that's how they voted. But I kind of pay attention a lot to local politics, and I've seen the pressure that the climate has put on people to think carefully about their choices. Like in Columbus, we have a police chief that was thought very carefully about the police chief. We have our first black sheriff that was elected. Do I think that the social pressures had a lot of things to deal with some of those changes that took place? Absolutely. And so there are conversations now that are being had that have not been had before. So I'm grateful for that piece of it. But now I think this is just me. I think it's no longer useful because now that people are awake and considering different options, I think that Biden and Harris will be more agreeable to some of the changes that will come across the table that will kind of swing us back, as Robert was kind of talking about, more towards the left. Because I don't see them reneging on their promises, because that would be political suicide. So I think that I think we'll see where this leads. But I think that the president we have now is who we have.
Why do you think it is so scary? I hope Justin's here and can see this. Why do you think it is so scary for people on the right to agree with progressive ideals? Like, when I talk to people about progressive, they throw words like communist, socialist, you want to destroy democracy. And it's weird to me because they act like progressive people want to destroy America. And that is not at all the progressive people that I know. Progressive people are like the first ones that want to sit down with you, roll up a blunt, motherfucking, you know what I'm saying, chill with you, make you happy. And you know what I'm saying? Those are the progressive people I know. So, Michelle? You're muted.
Well, I was just going to say a lot of this is being reined in with fear, right?
I can hear you.
That's a lag on my part.
I just unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Oh, it's okay. So a lot of this has been reined in and manipulated via fear and this sort of misconception and sources, right? So we're not getting all of our information from credited or right sources, especially with social media being misused and abused as a tool, for a news source. And so I think with that and the way that our country has become a lot more polarized, in addition to the regular news sources that we have on TV, for example, nations, what I found really remarkable is that I'm also in a bubble too. I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot more independent, more left-winged kind of liberals, I guess, especially being more in a city. But I always forget that there's so many other communities out there that are very different from me, and how religion comes into place with that as well. Not always, but your way of living and the way that you make a living will, sway you onto how you feel about other people and what influences they've impacted you or taken away from you in your life. And so this lack of connection and this lack of empowerment, we are now kind of in this surge I've noticed of empowering our youth, empowering our people that normally don't have those access or resources to access that information or to be involved in current events, because they always look at what's immediately surrounding them and how it affects them versus the whole. So this kind of holistic approach through empowerment, through correct information, through the way that you communicate to a person. I forget what this gentleman's name is, but he has a channel on YouTube, I understand. He's like a Southeast Asian, I think. Totally, I might be incorrect. But anyways, he basically goes to certain events and he just gives you a perspective, a point of view experience and what it's like. And one episode I understand was about going to a Trump rally versus going to a Biden rally and just really understanding where these people are coming from. Because even though I think like what was said earlier in the panel, even though you may be Republican, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're a racist, but I think there's a lot of enablement and trickling down in that kind of systematic effect that we are not seeing in the long term. And so because we're only so focused in what's happening right in front of us in our very first sphere of influence, right? And so it's this communication through that empowerment, through that sense of information and communicating that information through language and jargon. So like the Trump campaign, for example, has this sort of charisma involved with the rural communities, especially, and those that are more towards labor workforce and manufacturing labor, with simple language. It's no sort of difference in hierarchy. It's like, I'm fighting for you because I understand what it's like to be in your life, versus the Democratic Party, which was more of like this kind of highbrow, tip nose kind of like sophistication, where it kind of cancels out a lot of other demographics and socioeconomic rounds of people that they don't feel like they can relate because of the language that was used.
That was very insightful. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to
just like influence of power and information, and no, it's okay. And difference in generation and influence above that. I would say kids nowadays, it's really hard to like bullshit a kid just because like they have so many different access of sources, so much stimuli that they're given, as opposed to me back in the day. I remember when I grew up, I had to look up things for encyclopedia for the resources and stuff, hard text kind of thing. Right. So the spread of information is really changing that. And I hope that is to our favor as a country to be more connected and understanding why everyone's coming from their point of view versus like, this is evil and this is bad because it's going to affect me.
Before we move on, did anyone else want to comment on that last question that I asked, Robert? Okay, Robert and Justin, I see you.
Say, this is just Noam Chomsky's manufactured consent. We cannot physically control people anymore. So if you control the information, you control the population. And every one of us has one of these things in our pocket that has an algorithm. So every time you go on social media, it's smart. It learns from you and it's showing you targeted ads all the time that are going to reinforce all of your biases, everything that you believe. And so to your point, Michelle, we all now exist in a bubble. And, I hope, like you, that it is to our favor.
Okay. Justin?
I hope we understand that we're in an echo chamber and know when to get out of that sometimes.
Which is why we do things like this.
Sure. Yeah. But, even if you understand that you're in an echo chamber, but you also, are biased towards wanting that echo chamber to be fruitful politically on a large scale. I find that kind of problematic because I'm personally, and so you said you wanted to hear the opinion of somebody who would say, because like I'm one sometimes very almost to be a little bit of a parody of a conservative. I will refer to everybody as a commie when I'm disagreeing with their stuff. I find it entertaining. I'm a professional troll. So, but it's not so much the people that vote to left-leaning policies or progressive policies. Like, I completely understand that. Like, it's very noble causes, equality and all those things that the left, honestly, I think it's pandering. I think the Democrats are just as guilty at pandering as the Republicans are. And I don't think that they actually want to help anybody. I think they want to use our humanity against us. They've weaponized our empathy, and me coming from my beliefs, particularly in my religion or spiritual beliefs.
I see you, Jason.
I'm all about self-governance. That's kind of just where I come from. And so I tend to agree with the more conservative side, but I don't like either of the major parties personally.
Here's the issue with self-governance. I see you, Jason. Here's the issue I have with self-governance. Self-governance, you have to truly believe that everyone is willing to self-govern themselves in a positive way in order to have like an entire country run that way. And that's bullshit. You'd absolutely know it's people out there who are just not going to do what people tell them to do. I was talking to somebody recently and I was just like, oh yeah, I hope they legalize drugs everywhere. And they were like, nah. And I was like, why? Why wouldn't you want drug legalized? It wouldn't be fun anymore. There's people who think like that. Like, it wouldn't be fun because it's legal. There's actually people in this country
Same
who think
thing with
stuff
gay
like
rights. To be subversive is exciting. Absolutely.
I don't know about that, but
I've
my
seen
point,
people claim that before.
People can claim it, but my idea is this: like, self-governance is great. The idea of less government is cool. I get it, but is it logical? Is it logical?
Yeah.
Jason wanted to say something, and I see Robert too.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's so much to unpack there. First of all, I live in Seattle where marijuana is legal, and it is still fun to get high. So, exactly. And look, Justin, we look like the same person. We are very, very, very different people. I resent the argument of, well, both sides are pandering. All politics are just pandering. We have one
power and money. Say anything.
Look, say anything except that in action, one side actively tries to take rights away from people, and one side tries to give more people rights and tries to make sure that more people have health insurance and tries to make sure that more people have access to what they need. And it's just, and look, I see Michelle getting that look like, oh, whatever, that's just a lie. But the fact is, like, look, we have a country that is divided, clearly, but, like, you can't say that both sides are just pandering. You can't say that both sides are equally, oh, they're just politicians, they just want money. Because in action, indeed, one side is actively trying to fight for more democracy while the other side is trying to make sure people's votes aren't counted. And I think this goes back to what Robert was saying earlier. Robert, I agree with you. I wish that the Democratic candidates were much farther left than they are. And the way that you would put it was the Democrats gave us a candidate who was more to the middle. But unfortunately, the primary voters gave us that candidate. The people of South Carolina voted for Joe Biden. The people, people voted for Joe Biden. I would have seen Elizabeth Warren as president, but that's not what happened. And so I'm happy to vote for who I have to vote for and then keep acting as an activist to keep trying to pull them left.
Okay. Well, we're going to table that one just for now. That was a great conversation, but for time's sake, I kind of have two more topics I want to talk about. So one is not really a topic as much as it's a question. So I was thinking the other day, because somebody had wrote, it was election night, Kamala went to do her speech, and they wrote, oh, she had to come out in her Olivia Pope outfit or whatever. And I just was like, oh, Olivia Pope would never, just to be an ass, because Olivia Pope be having them Givenchy and design, whatever, right? So then I started thinking, I was like, man, Kamala Harris is always wearing pantsuits. And I had a conversation with someone recently about the ideas of femininity in our society and how we look at femininity as a negative thing. A man wearing a dress is somehow softening that man, but a woman wearing pants, she's seen as powerful, right? So why is it that we still do that kind of stuff? And so I thought to myself, wouldn't it be nice if she actually did wear a dress to inauguration? But then I was going to post it, but I didn't want to post it because I didn't want people to think that I was saying oh, she's a woman, she needs to wear a dress. So I just kind of wanted to have the conversation of if she did wear a dress, do you think people would look at it as negative or positive or what? Because she's literally always wearing pantsuits. And I know that's a weird kind of topic, but I'm just kind of debating the ideas of femininity in our society. And now that we actually have a woman who's going to be in one of those two positions, wouldn't it be nice to see her be all parts of herself? And I'm assuming that she was. Maybe she doesn't like dresses. I don't know. But okay, Justin wants to start. Okay.
Clearly, what we need is some kind of law that regulates what kind of clothes women can or cannot wear, particularly when they're in a position of power, because self-governance is not acceptable.
Oh, you're being
I'm being sarcastic.
Right? Yeah, you're being a troll. You're being a troll.
We got women.
I think women should be able to wear whatever they want, whether they're vice president or whether they're not.
But my mom was the one who really, me and her were talking about it, and we were watching that new. Oh yes, let the men go. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead, Michelle.
I'm just going to keep it short. I think, unfortunately, it does matter because we are living in a world mostly run by white males. So it is under that impression that it'll be in effect. And then if she does decide to make a choice, such as to wear a more feminine or, dressy kind of attire, it then has to be addressed. And then it's commented. And then people are focusing on that as opposed to the things that are actually coming out of her mouth.
Right.
So I think, unfortunately, yes, it does matter because of the way that the world is run right now.
As a woman, do you look forward to a time where her wearing a dress doesn't matter? Or I mean, I know that's kind of a ridiculous question, but.
Ideally, sure. Do I think that we'll realistically get to that point? I think the majority, the tipping scale will change to where that's kind of the accepted norm, but you will never win everybody. And I think just being able to move forward in life with that concept in mind, that's, don't need to let other people stop you. So.
Amina or Casey?
Hell yeah, people are going to talk about it because everyone's bored as shit right now. I'm sorry. Everyone's bored right now. And so, just look at the royal couple or the royal family. They can't step out the door without somebody being like, oh, her dress is too short. It's too low cut. It's not boxy enough. And she doesn't look old enough. And matronly or whatever, they're gonna have something to say about it, and that's just history. And to me, that's part of just the entertainment of politics, at least where it's gotten to today, which actually when Trump was voted in originally, I said, are you sure this isn't just happening because everyone's bored and wants something interesting to watch for the next 4 years? Yeah, we could get Clinton, but what would happen if we voted in Trump? We need entertainment. And I think the same thing goes for women and our clothing. It's just another form of entertainment. And it's going to be talked about no matter what. So you just kind of have to make a choice.
Amina?
I definitely agree with the ladies. I don't think it should matter. Unfortunately, like she said, the world is bored. So they're gonna nitpick at every little thing. But you know, having power is power. She is the vice president. Whether she wears a dress or pants, she still is in the decision-making, chair. So at this point, I don't think it should matter. But yes, they're gonna pick and find a reason. Even if she wore too many dresses. Oh, she wears too many dresses. She needs to wear pants sometimes. I think it's just always going to be something that has to be said just because she's a woman in power. I feel like she's going to be nitpicked about every little thing, every little statement, just like how they already are doing on, Saturday Night Live, talking about that she's a drunk and like it's everything already. So I think
they say she's a drunk on SNL.
Yes, they had her talking like, yes, I'm here, but like impersonating her, but as she was a drunk. They've
I did not know
kind
that.
of said
that recently.
It was when it first, I feel like when it first aired, the first couple of episodes is when they started talking about her, especially when she was sitting in the seat going against Pence. In those episodes that they had right there, they were trying to insinuate that she was, been drinking or drunk, something along that lines. But I think it comes with the territory. She's definitely going to be, told regardless, they're going to find something to talk about when it comes to her, just because she's the first.
Yeah, I agree. I guess the way I thought about it was I was just in my male mind, I was like, man, she looks so pretty in a dress. And then I was like, but she's not going to wear one because people would talk about her.
Well, and then they wouldn't hear her message. Like Michelle said, like if she's wearing something different, it's going to be all about that and not about what she has to say.
It's interesting hearing your point of views because for some reason in my head, I was like, it would be a huge power statement for her to actually wear one. Kind of like a fuck you to everybody, But that's interesting. Okay. We're not going to go around the circle now. I just wanted to hear your thoughts, women, ladies. Okay. Cardi B very recently had a Reebok ad come out. And in the ad, she's holding a Reebok and she is depicting I believe a Hindu goddess. I don't want to say the Hindu goddess's name wrong, so I'm going to look it up first. But before I find that name, and so there was a lot of backlash because this goddess was apparently, they were like, our culture is not to be appropriated. You clearly don't appreciate it because if you knew anything about anything, you'd know that you can't even walk into a Hindu temple with your shoes on in the first place. So, so immediately when she heard about this, Cardi B gets on IG and issues like a public apology. It was very humbling. It was very sincere. She's like, I absolutely, the only reason I did this was because they said that God is representing femininity and liberation and all these things that I admire. However, I apologize if it offends anyone's religion. That was not my intent. I should have done my research before I did this. I want to talk about that just because I feel like when celebrities, because there's people out there are going to drag her still, when people in power or in a position of influence do things wrong, you so often see them kind of dance around it, especially the guy who's in the White House. You see them dance around it instead of just doing what she did. So do we forgive for her for what she did, or do we still hold it against her? Anybody can go. Norman, let's hear from Norman.
Oh,
go ahead.
I mean, I don't honestly have much to say on that, but what else can you expect from a person after they, deliver a sincere apology? I mean, I think I've kind of maybe answered something similar to this before. Like, you have to balance public responsibility. You're held accountable for your words, right? And so, no matter what you say, how you say it, there are going to be people that never forgive you and people that always hold things against you. But I'm a firm believer that person probably had something against you in the first place, right? And they're just kind of tagging that on you. But also, if you're going to be a public figure, you have to be able to get beyond those things, right? You have to be able to get further beyond doing more things, doing more positive things to upbuild the community. It's kind of like, Michael Jordan. He wasn't very political, and he got a lot of backlash when he was expected to support certain candidates, and he was like, "Look, I just want to play basketball." But a lot of people got over that when he kept winning championships, and so people tend to forgive you for those things over time, as as long as you can continue to go forward and put out more content. So, there's really, in my book, there's really no more reason to hold her.
Justin?
Well, I mean, there's a couple questions that come to mind. One is, why is Cardi B catching the flack? Did she direct the commercial?
No, but as the person, I mean, I'm pretty sure they have some say. You can always say no.
Sure, yeah, but I mean, when you're that elevated to that degree, and you've got that much money, and are performing all the time, probably losing sleep, always. I mean, you're not functioning entirely properly. Anytime you're in the public eye, you're very rarely operating at 100%. I think, if anything, she was being used by a corporation that may have made light of or poked fun at another culture, and there's a lot of that. I don't think it's necessarily worth demonizing her over. I don't even think she should have had to apologize necessarily.
Really?
Because, yeah, I don't think so.
Why?
Partially because, because she's a human being, and I think all culture kind of belongs to all of us in one way or another. Like look at The Simpsons with Apu running the Quickie Mart, right? Something like that. If The Simpsons came out today, everybody would be up in arms saying, "Oh my gosh," But it's like, these are things that we all experience in one way or another, and I just don't think it's worth getting too offended over. Maybe if somebody who was actually Hindu said, "Hey, by the way, your arms are positioned wrong because that goddess doesn't ever do that," and if they poked fun at her for doing it inappropriately or inaccurately, I would find that a conversation that we could have that actually raises our consciousness versus fights about petty things.
Robert?
Hey, I don't necessarily believe in cancel culture. I believe people are allowed to make mistakes, but Cardi B didn't direct that commercial. Like, she wasn't the creative director. Like, there's other people in the room who are making those decisions. Tons of people, teams of people. And to feel like there was nobody in the room that had the cultural awareness to know that that wasn't okay, like, I feel like that's more of the problem. It's not necessarily Cardi B. The fact that she came right out with an apology, I think, is what you should do, and it's great. And if it's genuine, like, let it be a learning experience for her. But I think it should be addressed to those other people in the room, because it's not her constructing this whole image and all of this,
Right. Okay, Michelle?
I second that, because I do believe that it's not just her, nor is it fully her responsibility. But the fact that it is her face and her name, for her to issue an apology all on her own, or what at least looks like is from herself only, not something that her team told her to do, carries a lot of weight in that, and the sincerity of her apology.
Yeah.
Now, I do want to point out the difference in this kind of cultural appropriation thing, right? And, when is it cultural appropriation? Because I hear what you're saying about, cultures belong to everyone, but let's specify that sentence for a second here. So I do think that there's beauty in sharing cultures and like which ones you identify with, whether it's community, culture, religion, nationalism, etc. But it's whether or not, from what I've learned, it's whether or not you are invited. So from the look of this story, and I don't know too much about it, but it looks like, and I don't believe Cardi B identifies as Hindu. I don't know if anyone in her creative team does identify or have any sort of knowledge of Hinduism. And if they did, like Robert was saying, why didn't anyone say anything? Because there are so many thresholds that were passed to continue this project.
Right.
Now, if it was something that she was genuinely interested in, wanted to incorporate in her image, let alone her own personal life, that's a different story. But here in this particular marketing tactic, in this campaign, it's for profit. So this whole people over profit kind of idea, right? So if you're just culturally appropriating something that you were not invited to the table in the first place, you're just using it because it's trending to be able to get you more views and sales, that is a cultural appropriation distinction between her actually having interest and respectfully going into that sort of community and representing it through her way. Like, for example, Kim Kardashian, she has her whole, I forget what it's called, but it's like body figure line, like Spanx pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
And she had this whole thing where she wanted to do the kimono. And it had nothing to do with the Japanese culture and just how the respect that comes with wearing that traditional garb, but there was the whole backlash there. And, you know, unless that community or that culture invites you in, like, of course, learn more about us, be a part of this experience with us. That's different than like, oh, that's cute, I'm going to use that in my next marketing campaign.
Absolutely. Oh, anyone else want to talk about that? No more comments on that one? Okay.
I do want to say right quick, Duri, I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
I totally agree with what Michelle said. Just piggybacking, I just honestly think that when you are approaching another culture, that you should do your research, because that could be offensive. And once it becomes offensive, I do believe that that's at the point where you should apologize. She did the right thing by apologizing, because she acknowledged that she didn't do her research. And I think that was very important to point out. But the fact that she even took the time out to give an apology when you offend, you know, some people religiously, spiritually, in any type of way, I commend her for that. And I'm glad that she did that.
I'm glad that she did it too, because in it, first of all, celebrities, especially musicians, get a bad rep for having to be responsible for the actions of the youth. You know what I mean? They are influencing youth. Well, okay, let's say, for instance, she was influencing the youth. What she just taught the youth was, if you screw up, apologize and then move on. But she also taught the youth about the need to do your research, which I thought was the best part of it. That one little part, I should have done my research, can change a lot of these people out there, and to remove a lot of these conflicts in the future. Okay, so one last thing, and this is, I don't even know how long we're going to talk about this, but Alex Trebek passed away this week. Rest in peace, rest easily. Who is really a American cultural icon for sure. It's interesting seeing everybody's response to it. Literally everybody, it was just like, oh man, it, almost like somebody we knew. And so, you know, with his passing, everybody was focusing on that and the tragedy of losing him. I really didn't see a lot of people talking about what the show was going to do, Jeopardy, until today. Today, I saw a petition online for a new host who they want to host Jeopardy. And the person that they're petitioning for is LeVar Burton. And I personally think that's a brilliant idea for so many reasons, representation being one, but also that he is someone who, especially people our age, was so integral in the idea of education. Like Reading Rainbow was like, him doing that show literally changed a lot of, I think it opened up the ideas that reading was cool, education is cool. So pulling him into that position where he's almost, because Alex Trebek was clearly about, you got to know your knowledge. I think he's a great successor. And I just kind of want to hear people's opinions about that. Anybody can go.
I'd support that.
You support it?
Great to me.
Yeah, sounds good.
I like it. I told you we wouldn't talk about that long.
We're all signing the petition. Let's do it.
Listen, so if you're online and you see the petition, please sign it. Please get him on there. And this is more of an announcement. we're headed back toward quarantine, people. Wear your masks, please. California just hit California just hit a million cases. Now, for the people who don't believe in wearing masks, why? But no, for real. It's not for you not to get sick. It's literally for you to stop the spread in case you're carrying it and you're asymptomatic. I'm sure you heard that 1,000 times, but I'm going to say it again. It's not for you to stop getting sick. It's from you spreading it if you're asymptomatic. We want our economy to do well. We want everybody here is suffering monetarily, unless you're like a hand sanitation production manufacturer or whatever. So please just be considerate and it's not just us. The whole world is headed back to quarantine. Cases are up in France. England just went back on lockdown. And we're seeing more of that. So just be aware and be safe. So we're going to head into our main topic, which is religion versus spirituality, which is great because we've kind of been touching on it all through the night. But before we do that, we're going to head for 1 minute of ad breaks.
What am I actually telling my body? And the things that our body needs to survive, you can't weigh it down with all that junk, all the chips, cookies, cakes, and pies. You know what I'm saying? Like, think about that. And I know for me, that's my struggle. My weakness is sweets. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I had already planned when I got this video to make a run to Del Taco real quick and get one of them sweet cheesecake bites. Let me tell y'all something. Them things will make you slap your mama. They're so good. Lord have mercy. Is that drool? That done got me drooling.
That is the Mompreneur Plug, a wonderful YouTube channel that just reached over 12,000 subscribers. Please join. She gives life hacks about being a mother, also about being an entrepreneur and a wife. She's also hilarious, and she has a running sketch on there, which is basically how different people are responding to quarantine. It is hilarious. It's Tamara Francis. And also that was Shadowrun Missions, brought to you by Rem Alternis Productions. We go live every Tuesday on Twitch at Master of Rem, R-E-M. It's great. I play a mage who is an elf. So I have black fur all over my body. And I cast spells. It's the funnest thing I've done all year. Okay, don't judge me. All right, so it's time for some talk about religion versus spirituality. Okay, so here's why this topic of conversation is so important to me. I grew up in a house. My father is a Jehovah's Witness. My mother when growing up, it was Seventh-day Adventist. My grandma was Baptist, and I think my grandfather was Methodist. Now, those are 4 different religions who are all worshiping the same God, right? So, and then in addition to that, I went to school, and I went to school with a lot of different people. So, of course, I had Muslim friends, I had Jewish friends, I had, I don't think I've ever had a Hindu friend. If I did have one, I didn't know. But I've just met a lot of people in different religions. So I was a certain age, I guess I'll self-share. I was about 21. When I decided that I was more agnostic than Christian. It didn't make sense. All the research that I had done, that the things that I had learned growing up didn't make sense after that. Also, a lot of my experiences didn't make sense in that. But I also did feel this deep connection to the universe, is what I like to call it. And so just for the universe, I like the term the universe because it's kind of undeniable because we live in it, but it isn't so pointed that it can include everyone. So that's why I use that term. So I see those things, and I guess the ideas behind, I did a lot of research, and then through my research, I realized that a lot of religions were talking about the same things, just in different ways. So I want to do a panel where we just discuss this, because I'm hearing I heard a statistic somewhere that I can't really quote. I should have been able to quote it, but I can't. Where they're talking about more people are leaving the church and headed toward being more spiritual in their practices, especially being Black. And when I say Black, I specifically mean a descendant of slaves, not necessarily African American, because that could include anyone who, like Charlize Theron, is African American. So she is. I'm not trying to be funny. She is. I mean, she's from South Africa. So when I say Black people, we were taken away from a place where we had totally different religious practices, brought to a place, taught Christianity, and expected to necessarily cling to it. Now, I don't blame anybody for choosing Christianity or whatever, but just understanding that part of the history changed for me a lot of how I feel about the universe. So I'll just open it up with this. Do you consider, we'll just start the conversation easy. Do you consider yourself more of a religious person or a spiritual person? And we'll just go around the circle. We'll start right there with Jason.
Sure. I mean, religious, I do believe I'm a Jew. Okay. So I believe in the traditions of the calendar that exist. There is a rhythm to the Jewish calendar and the holidays that basically are celebrating seasons, celebrating or remembering things that have happened in the past, not letting it forget, where people come from and what's happened in the past for Jews. When you say religious, though, that also usually implies like a very observant Jew, which I am not as much of. That would imply I was raised kosher, but I eat pork and shellfish all the time now. I eat milk and meat together.
You said you eat milk and meat together?
Yeah.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Okay, it is, because in the Bible it says, don't cook a kid in its mother's milk. And so what the rabbi said was, okay, we should put a fence around this law to make sure that we're not cooking a kid in its mother's milk. So the fence that they created is you can't eat milk and meat together, which then they created more fences around those laws to say, okay, you should have different sets of dishes. You should have different sets of cutlery. If you eat meat, you have to wait 6 hours to eat milk. If you eat soft cheese, you have to wait 1 hour. If you eat hard cheese, you have to wait 3 hours. Like, there's all these rules because Judaism is a religion of people. It's a religion of laws. There's a reason why there's so many Jewish lawyers, because our religion is so much based on textual study and discussion of, analysis of what this law means, what this actually says, and how should we observe that. And so, but what's important is that, it's about, just as much as it's about laws, it's about the community and it's about people. So, when my wife and I moved to Seattle, we found it very, very difficult to make friends until we went to synagogue and were invited to someone's house for a Friday night dinner and met other Jews who were also there, and were able to, find reasons to get together on a Friday night, light candles with our babies every week, and, celebrate those occasions together. Which to me, that's what religion is all about. It's about a community of people, and it's about trying to make the world, leave the world a little bit better than you left it.
Okay. Justin?
I'd probably say I'm a little more spiritual than I am religious. Spiritually, I kind of dabble in a little bit of a pantheon. Religiously, I am a LaVeyan Satanist. So basically, I would describe that as a extremist atheist. There's no actual God. We worship ourselves. In my religion, I'm not a member of the Church of Satan, but I enjoy the philosophy of the religion. However, that religion that I identify with is a little bit at odds with my spirituality, which is that of, there's a little bit of pagan, there's a little bit of Thelema, which is a religion that was founded by Aleister Crowley, which is technically a left-hand path Luciferianism religion. However, I use it as kind of a basis of study, practice of magic and ritual. I personally think that religion is something that it's a double-edged, well, not a double-edged sword, but it's a two-sided coin. So it can be very oppressive, and it can also be very freeing. It's a tool, and just like anything else, it's how you use your tools.
Right. Yeah, I get you. You said, I don't remember. I'll come back to it. Norman?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up Christian, and in college I had an opportunity to walk away from it. But instead of walking away, my faith got stronger. And so, I'm thankful to have that testimony and to kind of share it with people, just why I am the way I am. So from a spiritual standpoint, you kind of alluded to something, Duria. You were like, how was it that we're all kind of describing the same thing? I believe that every man, woman, child is created in the image of God, regardless of, what your, affiliation is, which is probably why we see a lot of similarities, because we're all trying to get back to
the same thing,
the same creator. We have, it's kind of like, if you were born a twin, and you were separated from that twin, even though you didn't grow up with that twin, you still have the same DNA, which makes that twin your brother. So I kind of see it from that standpoint, from a spiritual standpoint. Now, on the religious side, I do believe that we all did have to come from like a central point, right? Like if you look at math and science, it's all about trying to find a specific proof, right? Like what is the best idea or concept and things like that. So I am a person that feels like we should be striving just as much in a religious context for truth, just as much as we would try to strive for truth in any other practice or discipline. And so that's, kind of what I do on when I talk to people, like why I believe my particular religious belief.
Okay. Michelle?
All right. So I'm not going to lie. I had to look up the official definition
of spirituality.
You want to read it for us? Because I'm just Googling it. And so the first one says the quality of being concerned with the human spirit or soul as opposed to material or physical things. So I had a different understanding of spirituality, but I guess that makes sense. So the existence or acknowledgement of spirits. I grew up Catholic. My parents are Catholic. They're practicing Catholic with that as well. In college, I tried to maintain being a practicing Catholic. And then some unfortunate things happened, as Duria, and some of us know. We've lost a few of our friends. And so with that loss, with their deaths, it really challenged me to look at the world in a very different way. And at that time, I clung on to religion deeply. After college, it kind of went the whole other direction. And to answer your question, I think I'm more lying towards spirituality, but I don't even know that based on that definition.
Right.
I believe that there's a higher being. I don't believe that necessarily it's within the form of a god. I think a higher being could be a mountain. I think it can be nature in itself.
Right.
I also became more exposed to the understanding and history of religion. I'm not in support of organized religion. I think humanity and humans themselves have tainted the ideas of religion that's just where I am with it. I think the ideas and the philosophies that are the core pillars of how religion got started were all man-made ideas. Therefore, I'm trying to seek other sources outside of that. I don't think I would consider myself atheist. I think, if anything, I'd be more aligned towards existential nihilism.
You sound like an agnostic. Do you know anything about agnosticism?
I thought that was more of you don't care, but please elaborate. Please
no, it's not about apathy.
Okay.
There are weird, loose interpretations of it. Agnosticism is basically an admission that you don't have the capacity to understand what God actually is. Basically, like, I know something's up there, but as a human, I could never fathom what that actually is. And I submit to the idea that I don't have to know what that is in order to be appreciative and give reverence.
Got you. I guess
open-mindedness.
From my understanding, got you. From my
I can look it up,
understanding
though.
with that's okay. This
No.
is obviously a journey that I'm still figuring out. But I
Right.
think the one that I've resonated the most with is just existential nihilism, this idea that, there's no point to it all. And that doesn't mean, though, to me, that you can't put purpose yourself. And so just unwinding how much influence religion in our society has changed my thought process and like what I want in life and how I want to approach life and the goals I want to achieve. That really kind of fucked me up the past few years. And so I really delved into what exactly do I want out of this journey of my life.
Right. Just before we go to you, Robert, just because I pulled up the definition of agnosticism. Agnosticism is the view that the existence of God, of the divine, or the supernatural is unknown or unknowable. Another definition provided is that the view that human reason is incapable of providing sufficient Human reason is incapable of providing sufficient rational grounds to justify either the belief that God exists or the belief that God doesn't exist, which is basically, like I said, like I, as a human, I couldn't really, and it was crazy about that. A lot of religions technically say the same thing, like that we can't look at God in Christian. I'm gonna use Christianity. We can't look at him without, like, we wouldn't be able to fathom what it is. So, if you can't view something, do you think you can necessarily understand it in your brain? So that's why I believe is maybe it's not something that we have to know, but because of our ego, we have to. If we can't quantify it, we'll find a way to quantify it, and it's like somebody said something about a man-made construct. Okay, I'll talk about it more
This is so funny too. I just want to say, because I've just learned recently about our post-positive kind of era that we've come into with philosophy and like debunking the whole scientific method. So understanding that in correlation to the post-positiveness that we are in right now, and understanding theory and fact and law is clicking for me. So thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. Remind me to talk about relative truth versus ultimate truth, but later. Go ahead, Robert.
That I'm kind of with you and Michelle. I mean, I just feel like by contrast, I grew up in an evangelistic church, so that was interesting. And I guess around 16 or 17, when I got out of that and started to get into college, and I just started to think for myself. And like you, Duryea, I just felt like things didn't make sense. And I reflected on my years of being like a gay man sitting in a pulpit where I'm being actively preached against. So that was like a big time of like self-reflection and, digging for knowledge and self-discovery, really. So I feel that now I'm in a more spiritual place. And I looked up a pseudo definition of spirituality. I think this is from Psychology Today, but it was basically contrasting religion versus spirituality. And it says that religion, the purpose of it is in general to unite a group of people under the same values. The collective communication with the higher power, whereas your spirituality is a connection to your authentic self, or for me, I guess, and Duryea, more the agnostic people, the universe, or whatever it is that you want to call it, that is this unfathomable thing. But I think that I'm definitely in a place now where it's more about my personal connection to understand.
Okay. Casey?
So I actually came from a very non-religious family. We didn't go to church or anything like that. So I was kind of able to just make up my own views on life. And as a very young child, I took, science classes where they basically told us, religion was made by man, because when your child asks you, why is there water falling from the sky, you need something to tell them that they'll understand. Or if your child's being a brat, they need a way to say, like, stop being bad. Stop being bad. The gods are going to come down and, like, punish you if you're bad. So that, I think that was my initial reaction to religion, was just that religion is man-made. And for me, religion has always been, in my mind, the difference between religion and spirituality would be, with religion, you look outside of yourself. So you're looking for this God or this higher being or whatever, or heaven or wherever that might be, whatever that is for you, whatever you would bring you joy after life. I think people who are spiritual are generally maybe a little more scientific minded, and tend to look inwards. So instead of looking outside of yourself for a God or a heaven, you look inside yourself. You stand in the forest and you feel the wind on your skin and you realize what a blessing it is to be here and to have freedom of thought. So I'm definitely more spiritual. I do kind of have like a weird belief about reincarnation because of energy and the transfer of energy and things like that. But as far as just religion versus spirituality, I think religion is looking outside yourself and spirituality is looking inside yourself.
That's beautiful. Amina?
For me, I grew up, my background, we started off in church. So I started off in church, and to be honest, I just felt like I never could relate to what was being taught. Just more so because of the the language of the Bible, how it's written. I could never get into the "we goeth" and the verbiage of it. I just never could really get into it. As I got older, I just started to be more spiritual. That's where I stick with. I'm not a fan of organized religion. Just like Michelle, like it's definitely been tainted. We have so many different depictions of who Jesus was, and we have so many people that we have to follow and look up to. And I've always been the type to be like, my ideology of it is I don't need someone to tell me what's right and what's wrong. As an individual, I know what's right and what's wrong. I could never really get into the whole Jesus aspect of religion because I felt like Jesus is a person, but people give Jesus so much praise than they do the higher power. Jesus was a person that was created, and you know how in the Bible it says that we're not supposed to praise man or the man, but I feel like that's what a lot of people do. I hear people say all the time, well, thank Jesus, thank Jesus, Jesus, and I'm like, well, what about God? What about the Most High? What about the person, or not the spirit, whatever you want to consider? What about that aspect of life that gave that knowledge to Jesus? Or however, I just could never get into the whole Jesus aspect, and that's just my personal opinion on it. So I'm spiritual.
So for me, I consider myself spiritual as well. Now, the spiritual part of me, I consider myself an agnostic Buddhist. The reason I want to bring up Buddhism is because not a lot of people, but some people feel like Buddhism, they think we worship Buddha, but Buddhists don't worship the Buddha. The Buddha is a teacher. He was the first person to organize his teachings in a way to teach other people how to reach a certain level of thinking where you have reverence for everything around you because you're connected to it. And through that connection to everything around you, you're also connected to the universe. So, but one of my favorite things about one of the first things I learned coming into Buddhism was about this idea. The Dalai Lama wrote this book, and I was reading this book, and he was basically saying it's necessary for us across religions to start having conversations with each other. Whereas most people, they don't want to talk about your religion, because if I accept your religion as an actuality, then that means mine can't be true too. But the truth is that it doesn't really work that way. Just because I don't talk about your faith with you doesn't change the fact that you believe that. It's actually a hindrance, in my opinion, for us not to have these kind of conversations, because there's a lot we could actually learn. I had like a lot of the origin stories are really similar. And they actually all line up with the Big Bang Theory. So when you really think about it, us refusing to have these conversations actually creates bigger barriers for us to get over as people. So, okay. There's something else I wanted to, oh yeah, relative truth. Okay, so there's two different kinds of truths when you talk about truth. Because I saw a comment where someone said knowing is arrogant. And this is what made me want to think about, want to say this. So there's relative truth, and then there is ultimate truth. So if I took a cup like this, took this cup, relative truth for someone could say that's a triangle because you're looking at it from one angle. But if you're looking at it from up top, it's a circle, right? So for those two different people looking at the same thing, they're saying, no, that's a triangle. No, that's a circle. The truth is, the ultimate truth is that it's a cup. The relative truth is that it's a triangle or a circle. And if we don't have interreligious dialogue, we'll only ever have the relative truth. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay, so before we go into the conversation a little bit more, I want to bring about these. There is a 8-point elements of religion. So these are the different elements that qualify something as a religion. Number one, belief systems, a grouping of beliefs that explain the universe and humanity, often called a worldview. The second one is a community. The third is central myths. The fourth is ritual. The fifth is ethics. Then the sixth is characteristic emotional experiences. The seventh is material expression, which I don't understand. And the eighth one is sacredness. So those are the things that qualify something as a spiritual, as a religion versus a spirituality. Okay. So I kind of want to open up the conversation to basically talk about what we just heard from each other. If anyone wants to say something or respond to something that someone said, or just to even piggyback off of it, feel free. Anybody got nothing to say?
Hey, can we just talk about white Jesus?
Yeah,
and
I mean,
like, you know, all of my like Black brothers and sisters in the United States, you know, because we talked about how this is something that didn't come from us. You know, we were put in chains and brought across the Atlantic Ocean and taught this other thing. So for me, you know, fast forward how many ever 100 years, it's very difficult for me to understand. You know, I'm from South Carolina. Like I grew up in the Bible Belt. You know, my family grew up, you know, religious. All of my friends, you know, I only went to church and school. That was it. You know, I need to wrap my brain around how so many Black people, like knowing this and knowing it's so many Black people from where I'm from, you know, low country South Carolina. I go and visit my mom in Charleston, which used to be Charlestown, you know. So knowing all of this, how so many Black folks are still so, you know.
Does anyone who was either raised Christian or is currently Christian want to respond to that?
Yeah, sure. So that is the thing. I think we all we don't have a choice of like how we're born and what we're born into, right? And so I like to learn. And so when I kind of collided with history and different facts and things like that, like you're talking about, like it was difficult because you're right. I mean, it's like, okay, my ancestors most likely, depending on, you know, like where I came from in West Africa, would not have been Christians, or they would not have practiced Christianity the way they practice it today. but when you go back to look at it, you really find out that there are a lot of things that there are a lot of layers that we have to peel back that have to do with humanity and not with the religion itself. Like, Jesus was a Middle Eastern man that, during a time where Jews were had been conquered for at least 1,000 years, right? They've been conquered by Babylonians, they've been conquered by Greeks and Romans, and so they are a multicultural people. And so when you look at that, it's not this, Da Vinci's painting of who we see, this white bearded man. Like, no, right. that's hogwash. Let's throw that out. And so you begin to peel back those different things. Like, I found out this year that before colonialism, that Christianity had made it into Africa, especially like Egypt, like in Alexandria. And a lot of the early church fathers were African people. Like when you think about some of the councils that took place where they decided like what the core beliefs of the Bible was, there were African people there. Now, different parts of the world where in Asia and different things like that. So it's kind of, that collision made me think about my faith to go back and find out the truth about the religion itself, right? So like when you think about American Christianity, there's so much that is like crazy about it. Like the fact that you have to rip out entire books of the Bible, and they had one guy who was a head slave, and then the master would be behind them and telling them what to say to them. And obviously they're going to be telling them like, servants obey your masters and stuff like that, but they're not going to be preaching to them about Moses and the Exodus and stuff. And that's when they heard about these actual songs and these Negro spirituals, and they heard about the truth of it. That's what actually gave them the inspiration for like Nat Turner and these different people to raise up and challenge what they knew to be hypocrisy. And like even going back and looking at the Black church, like the Black church was very relevant in the 17th, 18th, and 19th century, and definitely 20th century, right? Doing civil rights, like that's what we think about it. The Black church was highly relevant. The church was highly relevant. But I think the reason we question, or I say this way, the reason I see when I talk with some of my friends, the reason they question a lot of that is because the church has lost its relevance. Right? Like I learned these terms. There's what's called orthodoxy, and orthodoxy is what you believe, right? It's kind of heady. It's like your faith and all these different things. I see Jason up there. He may be familiar with this, being a Jew. And then there's what's called orthopraxy. Orthopraxy means that like this is your belief in practice. This is your belief in practice. And so,
you're good. You're good.
And so what I think has happened is like when you see a lot of, evangelicals and like, I hate to go back to politics, but I mean, we're no longer relevant. I mean, and like we have nobody to blame but ourselves because like we're not out there, talking about the issues. We've been in church in the four walls of the church. And so for the past 2-3 years, this is what I've been colliding with. I've been asking these questions, looking at different religions, looking at those different things and saying, okay, I've got to be exposed to it. But the thing that has been refreshing is that the truth of what I find is something that I agree even more with. You know what I mean? And when you pull back all these different lies that have been piled on for centuries, especially via the Roman Catholic Church.
That actually brings it to a question I want to ask, because you're saying the church isn't relevant anymore, or they're not as relevant. So originally, the statistics that I saw said that younger people are moving away from the church and more towards spirituality. So why do we think that is? Why is the church, and this is from anybody, why is organized religion seem so off-putting to younger generations right now?
I can speak to that because for a while I wasn't that into doing the Jewish stuff because I was raised in a Jewish home. I was in kindergarten to 12th grade. I was going to Jewish school. So I had like a robust Jewish education. And by the time that I graduated, I was like burnt out. It's really easy to be like, I've heard these prayers before. I know these tunes. I know what that rabbi is going to say about this week's parsha, this week's Bible section of the Bible that we're reading. And you know, it's easy to kind of just like, in a parent's enthusiasm to imbue religion in their child, they can try and force it and try and, you know, and not every synagogue, not every church is the same. You know, Becky Becker said there's a lot of hypocrisy in religion. There is a lot of hypocrisy in religion. That's absolutely true. And when people see that hypocrisy, you know, my rabbi was caught on To Catch a Predator. The one who did my bar mitzvah was caught on To Catch a Predator. And when I was 18 years old.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, that is a fact. You can look it up. To Catch a Predator rabbi, you'll see all about him. But that's an easy way. That's an easy way to be like, whoa, this shit isn't for me. But you know, I think a lot of times, you know, that also comes down to youth. And then as we grow older, you know, I have a child now. I got him a bris. Like at 8 days old, he was ritually circumcised because I was ritually circumcised. My father, my grandfather, my grandfather's grandfather's grandfather, and we were all ritually circumcised because, you know, that was honestly the reason why is because Abraham, as 100-something-year-old man, went out into the desert, got crazy, and had a conversation with God where God was like, hey, snip that part of your dick off. And it was like, okay, that's our agreement between us.
Right.
Actually, it's more a symbol, right? It's something to carry with you. It's you know, I talked about the rhythm of the Jewish calendar earlier, or the traditions of Judaism earlier. And it's something that if it has lasted, you know, 5,000, 6,000 years and has been able to serve all of my ancestors, there's some truth there that, you know, is worth passing on. And yeah, Chris Malone said that organized religion can be a source of emotional and physical trauma. And that's true too.
I see you, Michelle.
You got to find the right people, and I'll stop talking. But yeah, I think it's, you know, young people, it's easy to push away from religion because of you were forced into it. And then you can find yourself going back to it when trying to find the right way to lead your life going forward.
Michelle?
I think one of the big factors in why this change of our youth is growing away from religion is community. So before we had all this access with technology, especially in the American culture, we idolize individuality much more than other cultures, right? And so this idea of that it takes a village to raise a family, that whole sense of unifying with your community, and that's where you get all of your influence from. We don't really have that as much because we're able to do so much on our own. And so with that, we're finding the friends that are more aligned with our beliefs and our interests online. And so college, stuff like that, education is a lot more accessible nowadays. And that's a whole nother fucking topic. But anyways, like the fact that people are doing that versus like, oh, maybe I'll just do more of a trade skill. And so with that, you know, there's not a need to like, oh, if I'm moving to a new town and I'm starting and I just have this new family with me, where do I need to find some new friends and family friends that can connect with my kids and that I can spend time with outside of school for the kids and blah, 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 is the church. So because of that decline, I think is also the decline of the church.
It's crazy because first of all, that's super insightful. I would have never thought to connect I would never have thought to connect the disconnect of this generation from the church to how accessible things are, because I guess I would think that churches would use that. Like I said, my dad's Jehovah's Witness. They got a whole website. You know what I'm saying? Like I literally see it and I mean, I get that too, because especially in the Black culture, church absolutely was the place to socialize, especially before. Like as a kid, that's where we saw a lot of people. We would go to places to eat afterward. And now I guess that's not so much the case. I always considered, I think what drove me away from organized religion specifically was how hurtful it was to me in my experience. Organized religion is 100% the reason my parents got a divorce. They didn't hate each other. They didn't fall out. It had nothing to do with anything else other than he wanted to be one spiritual religion and she did not. And in order for him, he had to have a wife, I think, that was his religion. So they had to get divorced. So I've always looked at it sideways, like how could this thing that's supposed to bring us together continually be the source of so much discord? Especially when you look at things like the Holy Wars, when you look, we did dropping like flies. Look at things like the Holy Wars, and you look at things like, I don't want to say this the wrong way, so I'm going to say the people who are extremists and kill people in the name of their gods, or blow buildings up, or start wars. It became, to me, that's when I started to separate the idea of men. I connected to religion. When I say men, I mean humans, because it was all these rules that were implemented and these actions and rituals that were implemented by other humans, especially when you look at the fact that people use religion for so long to dominate people. I am your God. I'm sorry, God chose me to be your king and my kids. So because of that, you have to do this. And when you look at it back now, it's like, oh, it was a power move. So then I started to question, why do we have to go to church on this day? Like, why? I went to church 3 times a week because everybody went to church different days, and it just didn't make sense to me anymore. So I started to look towards other ideologies. And that's how I ended up researching consciousness, which is more just about being conscious of how the space you take up in the universe, how large it is and how small it is. Like, have you ever seen somebody who like picks up a bug and takes it outside instead of smushing it? It's kind of like, right. It's kind of like, yeah, I do it too. It's kind of like this idea of like, unless you're like on my pillow, because that's a reflex, you know what I'm saying? But for the most part, I do that too, because once you realize, it's like, I wouldn't cut off my right hand with my left one just because it wasn't my left one, And when you start to think of things like that, it started to open my mind to the ideas that I wasn't right about everything. And maybe the people telling me that they were right weren't right either. And so it then allowed me to just like take myself a little humble pie and just listen to what people had to say, hear other people's thoughts, actually have conversations with people of other faiths as well. Casey, you want to say anything? I see you nodding.
I think that our youth nowadays are going more towards this idea of freedom. I think in particular lately, I just think our youth is going more towards they want their freedom. And as far as like the world and the political climate goes, I think that we're going more towards the separation of church and state. And I think that can have a lot of influence as well on the fact that people are just not as into religion, because religion can bring people together, but it can also separate people.
Absolutely.
I don't know
agree.
where I'm going with that, but
no, that's great. Michelle?
It does bleed into politics so much. Church and state have always been a thing that is battling through the centuries, right? And this abuse of power with these, religious heads. And then there was a separation with like Church of England, for example, and then Protestantism and everything like that. And so being held accountable with Martin Luther, that was all pushed aside. And so, with everyone was saying earlier, we are so disbanded because we're seeing the history of all these hypocrisies and these abuses of power, and just I think you're totally on track. You've got it. Yeah.
Trying not to let history repeat itself and all that.
Duryea, can I throw something out there?
Yes, absolutely.
This is Norman.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
So this is kind of like something that this kind of whole thing of like dissonance, right? And just trying to like knowing where to push the blame. And so this is kind of like a game that I play with myself and like reimagining the world. So like in reimagining the world, let's say we progress to a point to where we have no religions, right? We have no more religions and we're completely agnostic. Do we still have a world that has experiences the same problems, right? Will people ultimately try to rise into power and dominate over people? Will there, ultimately be schisms? And so I like to say that yes. And so for me, it's like, okay, well, let's really peel back the layer and say, okay, if humanity would still be the same, like how many layers can we peel back until we find the truth? And I honestly, I feel like I'm still peeling back those layers. But one of the things that I feel like is true, that no matter how good people are, that everybody is flawed in a way, right? I think some people are good-hearted. Some people are kinder than others. Some people have just had jacked up experiences in life. And so based on their kind of ideologies, they kind of operate from that. And so, but I think we all make mistakes, right? And so that's why I tend not to be as hard on religion as I am on humanity. And I try to unify that common theme and try to work my way. Yeah. And try to work my way back into, okay, let me analyze religions and separate humanity from religion. And then once we kind of deconstruct that, then now let's kind of layer religion back on top of it and look at it through a new lens.
Go ahead, Michelle.
What I've really been interested in and what made me think of this based off what you said, Norman, is what do we get out of it? So what do we get out of religion, spirituality, everything? So it's all these combinations in this whole list that Jury said out loud, right? You said it was like 8 of them or something. So like community. Yeah. So community, this sort of sense of salvation after death, if we believe in this existence in this afterlife, and just, so that really brought me into being more inward and understanding what am I getting out of religion and using it more as a tool. Because I totally believe that a lot of the core beliefs that religions follow are great rule books of how to live harmoniously and to continue humanity. So I see it more as a vehicle towards a way of life versus this is my trajectory and how to obtain this goal to be good and to be saved in the afterlife. I think that I can get a lot of those other answers for those other aspects in my life, such as community, such as faith and comfort in the emotional sense, blah, 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 and other things besides religion. And that's for me.
Yeah, no, sorry, Jason.
No, please.
No, I was just gonna say, like, is religion the only place where we can learn like good, upstanding moral character? Like, I just believe that people are inherently good-natured. Kind of like you said, Juria, there are some people who are, to the left or to the right of that. But in general, I think that people are good. And I think that there's so many other avenues, to your point, Michelle. I mean, I've been to 31 countries, and that's not even a lot. There's people who've been to way more places than me. But just getting out and like meeting fucking people and realizing that your way of life is not the only way of life. It has done so much for my life experience. Like I am rich beyond, I can't even quantify that, what it's done for my life experience, but just really like putting yourself in a situation where you're small and where you have to learn and where you have to really just be a sponge, I think is the most important thing. And it teaches you to appreciate your experience while appreciating other people's experience.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, I agree a lot with that. Michelle, you brought up that it shouldn't, some people see it as a way to salvation. Again, maybe it's because I was raised a Jew, and Judaism is not about salvation in any way, shape, or form. It's not at all about the afterlife. It's all about the here and now. There's the concept of tikkun olam, healing the world and trying to make the world a better place, trying to treat others as you want to be treated. The golden rule that exists for pretty much all religions. And you get what you put into it, right? So if people find positive things out of it, that's great. If people take it and bastardize it and use it to profit for themselves instead of help the world, well, then that's not great. And it's really an unfortunate and terrible thing. And those are people who, it's funny, Robert, you said it's good to be a sponge. One of the first lessons I learned in 7th grade rabbinics was the rabbis had all these conversations about what the best type of student is. And one of them was a sponge who takes everything and sops everything up. But the problem with being a sponge is you can sop up the bad as much as you can sop up the good. And what the rabbis taught was the best students aren't sponges, the best students are double sifters. The ones who are able to collect good, let it pass through, collect good again, and then all of the crud, all of the stuff that isn't good for the world, you let it fall away. And, it's, that's something, again, it comes from religion. That comes from, a philosophy of life that's just been around because a community of people have come together and had discussions about what the best way to try and be community. What is the best way to try and improve the world or improve yourself? And, it's great if someone is spiritual, if they get something out of it. It's great if someone is religious, if they get something out of it, as long as it's not harming other
people, right?
Yeah.
So I want to because he didn't really say much. So did you want to say anything, Justin, before we go on our final thoughts? You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Can you hear me?
A little bit.
Okay, perfect. So I missed a lot of that conversation because I was having some technical difficulties. But as far as what I think we were talking about, in the sense of religion and spirituality, and spiced it up. So I get the sense a lot personally that a big part of the difference of religion and spirituality is religious is very dogmatic. It's been historically used a lot as a tool of control of large swaths of population, particularly with like the Holy Roman Empire and many other empires, really, over a very long period of time. And that's, I think, one of the more wise aspects of the founding of America is it didn't tie the government to religion, as you were talking about with separation of church and state. I think that's a very important part of our culture. And it allows us, what it does is it allows us to kind of switch from that religion mind state into a spirituality mind state where we can actually dip our toes into other ideas of thought and learn from each other a lot more because there's this whole thing where groups of people have been studying things that they understand about life with ethics and morality and all these other things, and everybody's kind of come to these different ideas. We're all kind of looking at the same thing, different perspectives, and we all got something that we can share with each other, I think, out of it. That's the nice thing about spirituality, I think, is it allows you to not stay in a rigid place where your mind is closed to one idea, and it's just, I don't find it healthy personally.
Okay, so it is about that time. So we're going to head into our final thoughts for the evening, but we're going to pause for a 30-second ad break, and we'll be right back with final thoughts.
Hi, this is Cody from Cody Paul Media. Thank you for joining me. Anybody can record a video, but the question is, how do you make that video stand out among the rest? A quick animated video like this one can change things around for your company. So go to codypaulmedia.com and get those needs met today. See you later.
All right, that was Cody Paul Media, a brilliant media man. He does logos, web design, all that stuff. He's awesome. He does editing for videos. Please hit him up at codypaulmedia.com. He's a great guy. He designed both the intro and the outro titles for Talk It Out. So there's that. All right. So we're going to head into our final thoughts, where this is the part of the show where each panelist is going to tell everyone what either they learned today or what they're hoping you took away from the conversation. And we're going to let's start with Robert.
Oh,
yeah.
I don't want to be first.
I like looked at the screen and it landed at you. So I was like, okay, we'll go there.
But this was really cool. Thank you again for the opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's been very interesting to hear everyone's perspective. Some obviously very opposing, some similar. And yeah, I think that the most important thing is having the conversation. Like on my program, that's what I always say. Like, it's really important, whether it's political conversation, social, cultural, religious, whatever, it's important that people break bread with each other, because that's the only way that we come to further understanding. So that's really all I've got.
Awesome. You can find Robert on Instagram at Robert J. Grant or at aspect_progress.
Yeah.
Please look.
And actually, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, yeah. So we'll be coming out with new episodes in the coming weeks. So look out for that. It's Aspect Progress.
Okay, awesome. So next, let's go with Jason.
Sure. Yeah, no, I mean, this was a really interesting conversation. I'm glad to be the token Jew in this conversation. The person who comes from a less Christian background, or one of a couple people, I guess, who come from a less Christian background. And I guess, what I'd like people to take away from this is just that, religion isn't about answering to God. And from my perspective, religion is about community of people. And that means, being better to each other. That means, striving to improve the world around us. And if your religion isn't preaching that, then, in my opinion, that's not necessarily a religion that you might want to invest yourself in.
He crept all through that bar. You see, he's just like every word he's creating. Okay. Is that all you want to say?
You can follow me at Jason Picard.
You can find him at Jason Picard. For those listening, that's JASONPIC. I'm sorry. Yes. JASONPICKAR. Or you can find him at freewordsfree.com/free. Wonderful. All right, let's go to Casey.
So I thought it was really interesting how everybody came from such different backgrounds. I was expecting a lot more people like me who just didn't go to church because we didn't want to get up on Sunday morning. To be honest, I'm not getting up on my day off. So it was really cool to see all these different backgrounds of various people coming together and kind of more or less saying a lot of the same thing. And I think that just goes to show how similar people really are. We all have base values. We all have things that we want. We want happiness and, for ourselves and our families, and just peace, and to be able to live our lives. And just because you believe in one thing doesn't necessarily mean that that's, I guess, all that's it. There's again, to me, religion is more of a man-made construct. So I know there's people out there who are like, no, this is the way it is, and if you don't believe this, then you're going to hell. But I think it's more interesting to view it as a tool. And I think Michelle or someone said, you can use it the way that you use it. And if you get something good out of it and you're not hurting anybody else, then there's just no reason that other people have to jump on each other and try to dictate how they believe, their life is going to be or the afterlife is going to be. We can all just kind of be ourselves and also be together.
Wonderful. That is Casey Wynn, who you can find at Wild Wynn with 2 N's, WILDWINN Pictures on Instagram.
And you can check, you can also find me at That Actor Chick. So come find me over there.
That Actor Chick.
That's my personal.
Is it got like CHICK or is it just with the K?
Yep.
CHIK. Okay.
CHICK.
Cool. Bet. All right. Norman, hook us up.
Oh.
I can't hear you, buddy. You're muted.
There we go.
There
I
you
learn
go.
every time I come on your show, man. You have a great group of panelists. And so just even listening to the migrations from the beginning when we were talking about politics, and we kind of came a little closer to talking about our experiences once we got over to religion. I think that's really important. Regardless of what you believe, you can't have any type of relationship unless you have some common ground. And so I learned a lot from you guys that I will continue to take with me. So again, Duryea, thank you, man. And I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. And that book is called, remind us again, The Christian Man and Pornography.
That's correct.
That's
and
correct.
You can find that on my website, www.thechristianmanandpornography.com.
Awesome. All right, Justin. Are you frozen? He might be frozen. I'm not sure. Justin? Something's going on. All right, let's go. Oh, something. I think you're muted. Nothing. All right, let's try to get him in a second. Let's go to Michelle.
Yeah.
Oh, well, there he is.
Just thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you for being here too. Awesome. All right, Michelle.
I learned more about what agnostic means.
Right.
I really appreciate being able to be in a room and just having this discussion, like you said, Duryea. It's important to just everyone was kind of echoing too, just to have the conversation. That's the first big step. Because I've been working a lot more in a thing called equitable dinners as well, which is promoting this sense of community and breaking bread with each other, literally, as well as having just discussions with people that aren't normally in your same realm. And so with that, I want to share with the group and everyone watching today, I had the honor of being a part of an event and working with Dr. Bernice A. King. So MLK Jr.'s daughter. And just her words of the biggest thing that I took away from her guest speaking moment was connecting with others that are different from you. And this is exactly what we're doing here, because we're already so polarized and we already fear each other, because what her father was saying is that, we are separated because we fear each other, because we don't know each other. And so we can't talk to each other. So it's all in line. And I just appreciate being here and being able to do that. It's quite a privilege. So thank you.
Thank you for being here. And you can find Michelle at her IG, which is at Pokapac, and that's POKOPAC. You can also find her at East_X_Southeast. And thank you for being here. And before I give my final thought, I want to say thank you for all of the panelists. Oh, actually, Amina was having technical difficulties, but she messaged me her final thought. She says, let them know I said that the collection plate is the reason people stop going to church. That and the fact that the pastor is living his best life while we struggle. So, words of wisdom to end the night. Before I go into my final thought, I want to thank all the panelists for being here and not only giving your time, but also for donating your personal experiences and being open and vulnerable here. I had a great time. Also thanking everyone who watched the show, whether you watched the whole time or stopped in and commented. I really appreciate you all. You all are the reason why we do this show. Absolutely. If you want to be a part of the conversation, you can join the conversation by following us on YouTube at Woe Nelly Media. You can find us on Twitch at Daygamer. You can also find us at Facebook, Woe Nelly Media or WNM Talk It Out. Also, if you want to be a panelist, thank you. Backstage, I love you so much. If you want to be a panelist, you can email us at admin@woenellymedia.com. Remember, Woe is spelled W-O-E and Nelly N-E-L-L-Y. My final thought for this evening is I think it's really important, like that the climate that we are at a point in the world where we can actually have a better world. We're in a place where there's so much quote unquote chaos that there's a lot of possibilities for growth and change. We have an opportunity to start listening to each other instead of judging and moving forward. We talked at the beginning about Trump and all his supporters. It's easy to characterize them as all bad people. That's easy because then we don't have to do any work. But if we try to understand why some of them aren't bad people and then try to figure out why they would still vote for this man, then we could maybe move towards something. But when we just say, oh, they're that and ignore it, then we're just adding to the problem in a different way. So when we talk as far as religion versus spirituality, be open to other people's way of showing reverence to the universe. It doesn't necessarily have to become yours, but it should still be respected. And maybe there's a lot you can learn by doing exactly that, by having those conversations. All right. So without any further ado, I'm going to sign off for tonight. And I want to remind you all that Talk It Out is a space where people of opposing views can get together and have a healthy and productive dialogue in a respectful way, keeping in mind that it's not always about proving who's right and who's wrong. Sometimes it's simply about listening and being heard. Have a good night.
Shut up.